Hi everyone, I'm Ben. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Women's Prize. Finally a 2023 awards that cannot be won by Harry Styles. The long list is coming in a few short weeks and I thought it would be fun to do some predicting, or rather wishful thinking about what might make the cut. There are so many amazing eligible books this year and I had a really hard time narrowing them down. So before we jump into my 16 picks, I thought it'd be good just to recap the eligibility criteria. Number 1, the books must of course be written by a woman. Number 2, they must be written in English, so no translations. Number 3, the books must have received a full UK release with a price listed in British pounds. I'm not sure where that leaves books like Noor Naggar's If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English, which I'm seeing a lot of talk about lately, but I'm not sure it's been given a full UK release, or at least I can't find it on the Waterstones website. Number 4, that UK release must be between the 1st of April 2022 and the 31st of March 2023. That means that there are some books that you might think are eligible that don't quite sit inside the eligibility window. Books like Maddie Mortimer's Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies and Jennifer Hayes' Mercy Street were both released on the 31st of March 2022, so they both missed the cut by just one day. Finally, number 5, the books must be fiction, although organisers are looking to introduce a non-fiction prize in 2024, which is really exciting. They must also be novels of 30,000 words or more. Short story collections and novellas are not eligible for this prize, so something like Claire Keegan's Small Things Like These would not be eligible for the Women's Prize, although that was released in 2021, so wouldn't be eligible this year anyway. Anyway, on to the books. So the Women's Prize long list is one of the longer ones out there, and I've categorised my 16 picks into a few groups. Some of the books could fit onto more than one of my groups, so just go with me on it. I should caveat that of the 16 books I'm predicting, I have read precisely 0 of them. This is all based on research and reading synopses and looking at what other people are saying. My first grouping is the populars, and these are books that have already achieved quite a lot of commercial success. There are so many books that could make this grouping, but I've only picked 2. The first one, which may not be a huge surprise to you, is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Kingsolver is a lauded American author and her latest novel is a retelling of David Copperfield, but swapping out Dickensian London for opioid-afflicted America. It's been wildly successful, brilliantly received by readers, and Kingsolver is actually a previous recipient of the Women's Prize back in 2010 for The Lacuna. The other popular book that I'm expecting to see on the list is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. This is a debut novel by an American author set in the 50s and 60s about a scientist who takes a job on a TV cooking show. It's all about challenging the status quo and getting a patriarchal society to take women seriously. So I think it's going to be a hit with the judges. I think it's also worth noting that Bonnie Garmus is releasing her debut in her 60s, and I think book prizes love like a young prodigy or a late bloomer. You can look at the Booker Prize long list last year to see how excited everyone got about Layla Motley and Alan Garner both being on the same long list. So I think the judges will get excited about that. My second group of books are the critical darlings. These are ones that are not necessarily commercial smash hits yet, but have seen a lot of love from critics. In particular, these are 2 books that made the Booker Prize long list last year and are eligible for the Women's Prize this year. And we've seen that happen before with books like The Great Circle, which made the shortlist of both Booker and Women's Prize. The first of these 2 books is The Colony by Audrey McGee. McGee is an Irish writer that has previously been shortlisted for the Women's Prize in 2014, and her latest novel is about 2 men who travel to a remote Irish island to capture its essence, one through painting and the other through language. The writing is apparently very poetic and the voices are really strong, and I think it's one that is going to resonate well with the judging panel. The other book in this category is Nightcrawling by Layla Motley, which last year earned Motley the title of the youngest ever nominee for the Booker Prize. I think she started writing this when she was like 17. This book is about a 17-year-old who has to fend for herself and her son in the US, doing some really difficult things that you hope that no mother would have to do. I've heard that it's hard-hitting and powerful, and it's got nothing but rave reviews from people on booktube and beyond. My third category is the unreleased. So these are books that are not yet out, but their release dates do fall within the eligibility window. And the first of the books that I'm predicting will be on the list is Cursed Bread by Sophie McIntosh. McIntosh is an English author that's previously been shortlisted for the Booker Prize. Her new novel is loosely based on the true events that happened in some small French town where there was a mass poisoning, I'm assuming through the bread. It's been described as an intoxicating, atmospheric, erotic feminist novel, so I'm really excited to read this one, and it's out in early March. The other unreleased novel is Reamble by Priya Hine, which, although it is unreleased, I think my local bookshop put out some copies early, so I was just flicking through some stuff in there and was really taken by this cover. I had a read of sort of some of the first page and it really gripped me. It felt really powerful. I'll just read that to you actually, because I haven't heard about this novel before. I am the great-granddaughter of plantation rape. There's a tinge to my slightly light ebony blackness. I'm the daughter of Creole slaves and something far more sinister. Descendant of domestic servants and white masters who abused their workers. I have white male ancestry in me. Involuntarily. The whiteness I carry was not a choice. Between that and the gorgeous cover, I was instantly won over, and I could imagine this making an appearance on the long list, as there are always a few surprises. Hine is a Mauritian author, and this is the story of a 15-year-old girl, and her tale is interweaved with sort of the feminist history of the whole of Mauritius at large. It is quite sparse in terms of the word count, so I'm hoping it's got the right number of words to be eligible for the prize. But yeah, really excited about this discovery. My next category is the Offbeats, and I've got 4 books in this one. These are books that are maybe a little bit weird, doing something a little bit different that might intrigue and interest the judges. The first of those books is The Furrows by Namwali Sapel. Sapel is an American and Zambian author. This is her second book after her debut, The Old Drift. It's about a girl whose younger brother drowns when she's a child. But then when she gets older, she seems to see him everywhere. I've heard it's a pretty uncanny take on grief. It's a bit of a strange novel, but it's really enchanting. It also seems to be building a bit of momentum. It was on the New York Times list of best books of 2022, and there's only 5 fiction titles on there. And it's recently been shortlisted for the Critics' Choice Award in the US. This is actually my next read, so I'm really excited to get into it. Then we have Seven Steeples by Sarah Baum. Baum's an English author that, to be totally honest, I hadn't heard of until recently. Bob the Bookerer put this book on his favourite books of 2022, and then more recently this has been shortlisted for the Dylan Thomas Prize. I've had a flip through this in my local bookshop, and it seems to be a pretty sedate quotidian novel about a couple that move out to the countryside. But it also does some interesting things with form and how words are presented on the page. Nothing crazy like Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies, but just adding a little bit of poetry here and there. Seems interesting. I'm not going to rush out to read this, but if it does make the list, I may pick it up. The third book in this category is Things They Lost by Okwiri Ador. Ador is a Kenyan author, and this is a magical realist tale about a 12-year-old girl who is on a quest to save her mother. I've heard that the writing is really beautiful, evocative of Toni Morrison, and it's littered with rich Kenyan folklore, which just sounds really lovely. Magical realism does seem to be having a bit of a moment right now. There were lots of ghost stories on last year's women's long list. Books like This One Sky Day have been pretty popular. And of course, last year, The Seven Moons of Marley Almeida is a magical realist story that won the Booker Prize. So I'm expecting for this to be lapped up by the judges. This is another one that is also on the shortlist for the Dylan Thomas Prize. The last of my offbeat predictions is Cult Classic by Sloane Crosley. Crosley is an American author, and this is her debut novel about a woman who runs into one of her exes, and then another one, and then another one. And surprise, surprise, some weird shit is going on. I think this is going to resonate with the judges because I think it touches on things like social media and tech and how women are treated in these public spaces. Plus, the protagonist's voice is supposed to be pretty witty and engaging and relatable, which is sure to go down well. My penultimate category is the Zeitgeist. I think these are really timely, prescient novels that judges are going to go for because they say something about our current day. And the first one I've picked is Trespasses by Louise Kennedy. Kennedy is a Northern Irish writer. Brexit and the Northern Ireland Protocol still looms large in the UK, and it's quite a hot topic at the moment. I think a book set during the Troubles in the 70s is probably going to go down really well with the judging panel. We have already talked about The Colony by Audrey McGee, which is also set in the same period, but this one takes place a little bit closer to the conflict. It's about a couple embarking on a romantic relationship when they're on different sides of the Troubles. It's said to have a really evocative sense of place, and so I think it's going to go down really well. The next book I'm expecting to see is Emergency by Daisy Hildyard. Hildyard's an English author, and this one's published by Fitzcarraldo Editions, who have made a lot of inroads in a lot of prizes in recent years, but I don't think they've yet had a nominee for the Women's Prize. Well, I think there is a good chance of that changing this year with Emergency. This is a pastoral novel set during lockdown, but looking back at 90s Yorkshire. It aims to capture the interconnectedness of all things and how the global economy and global ecology intersect, and how that's been sort of a net negative and the cause of our current climate crisis. It sounds like a really urgent novel that I think judges will want to elevate. My final pick for the Zeitgeist category is Fight Night by the Canadian author Miriam Taves. Now, this isn't in this category because I think it speaks to some wider social or political hot topic facing the world at large, but instead because I think Taves is ripe for a bit of a moment. Her previous novel, Women Talking, has recently been adapted into a film that's currently nominated for the Best Picture Oscar, and Fight Night has been really well received by readers and critics. Fight Night is supposed to be a really funny and engrossing novel about the relationship between a young girl who's been kicked out of school and her grandmother who then homeschools her. And I wouldn't be surprised if the publisher has been working really hard to try and secure a nomination for this one. My fifth and final category is The Bubbling Under. So these are books that have received some attention. You may well have heard of all of them, but I think they've got the potential to be big, best-selling smash hits if they get the right push. I've got three final books in this category, and the first of those is Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow. Stringfellow is an American author, and this is her debut novel, which is an intergenerational tale of the women from one family in Memphis. This just seems like an all-round solid tale. I really want to read it at some point, and yeah, I hope it gets a bit more attention. The next book is Joan by another American author, Catherine J. Chen. There have been a lot of Greek myth retellings recently, and ones that have been previously nominated for the Women's Prize. I think this year we might not see any of them make it, and instead see something like this, which is a feminist retelling of the story of Joan of Arc. I've heard really great things about this, so I would not be at all surprised to see it on the long list. So my final pick is the novel Berlin by Béa Seton. Seton is an author that was born in France but has lived in a number of countries since, and I think now resides in the UK. This is a story about a woman who moves from the UK to Berlin, and then something strange happens that sets her on some troubling path. It's supposed to be a pretty absorbing, unsettling read with a flawed female protagonist at its heart. And I'm here for a flawed character, so sign me up. So that's that on that. 16 books that I have probably now jinxed and you will never hear of ever again. But we've not got long to wait. The long list is announced on the 7th of March, and at that point we'll be able to see if I have been able to accurately second guess the judging panel. If you've read any of my suggestions, or if there are any no-brainers that I have missed, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you want to see more of my content, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, toodles.